The Chicago Education Watch with Dr. Barnett.
Welcome back to Chicago Education Watch. I'm Dr. Marlo Barnett, and today we are covering what may become one of the most significant budget votes in recent Chicago public schools history. The Chicago Board of Education did not simply approve the superintendent's proposed budget, but instead, board members amended the proposal by changing one of its major revenue assumptions before adopting the budget. That decision immediately raised questions about school funding, layoffs, state support, and the relationship between the superintendent and the board. Today, we'll walk through exactly what happened, explain why it matters, and then let you hear directly from the board members themselves. So, let's begin. The board agenda from yesterday, July 30th, 2026 board education meeting, like most board meetings, it began with public participation, opening business, the committee updates, and presentations. But yesterday's meeting quickly centered around one issue, the fiscal year 2027 budget. Everything that followed would ultimately lead to one of the most debated votes of the evening. So, what happened? In simplest terms, the superintendent submitted her recommended budget, but instead of approving that recommendation exactly as presented, the board introduced an amendment. That amendment assumed an additional $150 million in future state funding, changing the budget before the final vote. This set an unprecedented procedure. Rather than simply voting yes or no on the superintendent's proposal, the board modified one of the budget's key revenue assumptions before approving it. Whether someone agrees with this or disagrees with the decision, it demonstrates the board exercising its authority to shape the district's financial plan. So, the $150 million, there's a lot of discussion around that. So, why is everyone talking about the $150 million? Because the amended budget assumes that Illinois will provide an additional $150 million in funding. If that money becomes available, it could reduce or prevent layoffs and help maintain programs included in the amended budget. Several legislative leaders have publicly expressed about the additional school funding, and they will do so also during the fall veto session. However, as of today, the funding has not yet been approved. That makes this assumption one of the biggest questions surrounding the entire budget. So now that we've covered the basics, let's go inside the boardroom meeting itself. Rather than simply telling you what happened, I want you to hear directly from those who participated in the discussion. So in this first clipping of the video, there was public participation, and then several elected officials addressed the board regarding the proposed budget. Among those speaking were State Senators Mark Wick, Cook County Commissioner Tyra Stamps, and the 25th Ward Alderman Byron Lopez. So let me share my screen here. Okay, let me go over there and share my screen. So these are the elected officials. I will play just a little bit from the ones that I've mentioned.
Several elected officials who would like to address the board. We'll begin with Senator Robert Martwick Jr. from the 10th District, who is here in person.
Good afternoon, President Hardin and members of the Board of Education. Despite the gravity of the circumstances of today, I will tell you that it is an honor to be here with you today, and it is a personal pleasure to see this board operating as truly an accountable and representative board to the constituents that it serves. Today, I appear before you, and it is the first time that I've taken an opportunity to address you since the creation of this board. And that is by design. I do not wish to tell you how to do your jobs. I am happy that you are here and that you can be responsive to your constituents. And I look forward to the growth of this board and as you continue to find your place in this amazing new journey that you have as members of this Board of Education. But I am here today as an elected official. I am here today as a constituent of this district and a taxpayer. I'm here as the parent of 2 CPS students. And I wish to address you from all 3 perspectives because they are all important to me. I begin with an apology. I have lived through some very, very difficult years in Springfield where we've had to deal with some very difficult budgets. I do not envy the position that you are in today. My apology is that we don't do enough in Springfield. I concur with every speaker who has spoke before and has called for more from Springfield. But to that end, I wish to assure you that I am not alone in fighting for more resources, not just for CPS, but for every school district in this state where a child does not have the educational resources that they deserve and that they are frankly entitled to receive.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to play a little bit of the next the Cook County Commissioner. And I might add that Senator Martwick was one of the leading elected officials who pushed for the elected school board. It was his bills that landed, and ultimately, as we have along with others, but it was him leading that push for the elected school board. So now here's the Cook County Commissioner, Tara Stamps, and her comments.
Representative school board. That did not happen because power willingly surrendered itself. It happened because ordinary people organized. It happened because parents refused to give up. It happened because community organizations stayed in the fight. It happened because education advocates never stopped believing that democracy belongs to public education. And yes, it happened because the Chicago Teachers Union stood shoulder to shoulder with elected officials and communities across the city to defend and expand democracy. So before we discuss, or I discuss one moment of this budget, I want to say thank you. Thank you to CTU. Thank you to every parent. Thank you to every organizer. Thank you to every advocate who knocked doors, testified, marched, organized, meeting, built coalition, and refused to let the issue die and made this moment possible so that you all could be elected representative school board members and have this victory. But the elected board is not the finish line. It's the starting line. And that brings me to why I'm really here. I'm here because I'm deeply concerned about a budget that appears to balance the budget again on the backs of teachers, school employees, and ultimately our children. We've become far too comfortable asking educators to absorb the consequences of political failure. We've become far too comfortable with asking children to wait while adults debate whether they deserve the fully funded schools that they were promised. That cannot be the answer, you all. As Cook County Commissioner, I sit in board meetings where municipalities, libraries, park districts, villages, school districts, and other taxing bodies come before us and demand what they are legally owed. I have watched elected officials advocate unapologetically for their residents. I have watched people insist that government meet its obligation. That is democracy. During the property tax crisis, I watched community organizations and the Chicago Teachers Union, parents, commissioners, committed members of the Cook County Board of Commissioners petition the Cook County Treasurer to release the money that rightfully belonged to Chicago Public Schools. People organized, people advocated, people demanded action. Again, CTU showed up, community showed up, parents showed up, commissioners showed up, but respectfully, I have not consistently seen elected leadership of the Chicago Public Schools participate in that same democratic practice with the same urgency. If I had my teacher hat on, which truthfully I always do, I would probably tell this board something my students have heard many times. Well, maybe not this way, but you get it. It looks like CTU is doing your homework, and you're putting your name on the paper. So, and as a teacher, I would have had to write one comment across that assignment. Show your work. Show your advocacy. Show your courage. Show your willingness to fight for every single dollar our children deserve. Because I don't want an elected representative school board that simply inherits the bad habits of an appointed board.
Period. And so she ended up with fight up, not down. So let's go to the next person, elected official, which is the alderman of the 25th Ward.
Affect them hard by losing teachers. Milwaukee looking to hire laid off CPS teachers. I mean, this is the irony that we hear oftentimes, and I'm glad to see more elected officials today. I'm glad to see Senator Marwitz and Cook County, my sister, Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps. And I tell you that today we need you more than ever. Many of us collected petitions, fought hard so that we have an elected school board, but not to listen to Lincolnwood-based billionaire Michael Sachs. We did not campaign to have billionaires telling our parents what's possible. What does Lincolnwood-based billionaire Michael Sachs have a stake in this? As a father of triplets in Chicago public schools, I tell you that our parents today, sadly, do not have pre-K, full-day pre-K, for the most part. Imagine working parents that are asking the bare minimum. Do I have to choose between working or having the ability to send my kids to school? Yet we have billionaires who have thousands and thousands of dollars to pour in elections. We cannot have democracy and billionaires at the same time.
Okay, so I'll stop it right there. As he was talking about billionaires and in our school systems. So as I move on, I am going to go on to the CPS staff. They are going to talk about the budget that they proposed. So let's take a listen at that.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. My name is Emmy Lazoko, Acting Chief Budget Officer. I'm joined here by Wally Stock, our Acting Chief Financial Officer. I'm here today with an overview of our proposed FY27 budget, which totals $9.96 billion across capital, debt, and operating funds. In the face of persistent revenue shortfalls, growing costs, and a deficit of over $732 million, we published a budget for yours and the public's consideration that protects our most important investments. This number is higher than the last time I was before you due to revisions, which we'll discuss in the next slide. What hasn't changed is that this budget includes $330 million in structural deficit reduction, helping our long-term financial picture for CPS. This budget puts students first, reflecting choices that center our students' needs, prioritize equitable resource distribution across the district, and protect the investments that have the most direct and measurable impact on students' day-to-day lives at school. In the tentative budget published on July 15th, the district proposed implementing 3 measures to realize an additional $297.6 million in deficit reduction. We assumed $100 million more in assumed TIF surplus, increasing the total to $200 million. We proposed 5 furlough days for all CPS employees beginning in January on non-instructional days for a savings of $85 million. We proposed a district-wide mid-year spending freeze and procurement savings initiatives for an estimated savings of $112.6 million. Based on the public feedback received during the statutory budget review period, the district revised its proposed budget on July 28th, eliminating the 5 proposed furloughs and increasing its TIF surplus assumption by another $85 million to a total of $285 million.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. And remember, in one of my other episodes, I did discuss the budget, and CPS did have those budget community hearings where the community can give their input about the upcoming 2027 budget. So now I am going to move over to some comments by the board and what they have to say about their proposed amendment to the budget. So see if we're there. Okay, just a minute. I'm gonna go back.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask you, $285 million in TIF is a conservative estimate based on all of the previous years, would you say?
I would, yes.
And considering that the city is having its own budget problems, it will be probably dipping into that surplus, which means that they probably owe us more than $285 legally if they dip into their surplus to fill up their budget. Is that correct?
It's impossible to say for sure, but I imagine that'll be part of the conversation during the city budget process.
Okay, so it's really odd to me that we're complaining about getting $85 million from the city when really we're probably owed more. It's really odd to me that we're saying we can't depend, we have to really pound the state, when we're going to need in the General Assembly, we'll need a 71 to 36 vote in order to make that happen just in the state, not the Senate, just in the rep house. So that's a real uphill battle. I'm hearing these things about the Speaker of the House, Welch, who made the statement that he is in full support of us. I saw that clip and he looked like he was in duress. And he looked like, when I saw it, I said, brother, blink twice if you need me. And I'll tell you exactly what the brother said, because some of his statement is being said, but the whole statement is not being said. The whole statement was, I don't know if we can do a special session. I can commit to a veto session in November. We got to pass a budget so people can get paid now. I want my teachers paid now. I want special ed teachers now. I want that extra $143 million in this balanced budget right now. I just told you I want it now. I'm not tripping. I'm not tripping. I love y'all. Y'all know it's all love. But what I'm saying is we deserve it now. And so I'm not saying we're not going to fight in Springfield. Yes, we got to do that. But why are we limited? If we say we want fully funded schools, you fight Maria Poppins. You go to Brandon Johnson. You go to the governor. You go everywhere because our kids deserve it. And I agree with Member Blaze. It ain't welfare or a handout. It's my grandmama property tax money, and she deserve it because TIFs come from her property taxes. Thank you.
We will close out this discussion. I just want to make one statement though, as we close this out. Just a cautionary tale. As I sit here and listen to the different analysis, I think the board is right to evaluate everything closely to determine the likelihood of one source of revenue over the other. But I think the part that concerns me is that we've become a little bit too cavalier over the expectation of TIF. And just looking linearly at the data, looking at what has happened historically, totally takes away the reality of the politics of the moment. And that is a factor that contributes to what has happened historically over the last couple of years. We can't take that out and just look directly at the data and have that as our sole source of assurance. I could tell you as a board member, as president, that doesn't give me the assurance that you think that it may. The conversations directly with the mayor's office, the budget director, and everyone associated has not shared the same sentiment that we should be comfortable in this assessment. So my only cautionary tale to the entire board is do not rest with an assurance that the 285 is coming and everything else we should just be focusing on. That too has an element of risk that has not been substantiated by any account that I can have determined. And I've looked for it. This is something that I want. I don't care where the money comes from, quite frankly, but it has to be, if we're going to evaluate risk, I just want it to be underscored that 285 too is risky. And as we talk about it with a certainty and assurance that could leave us in a desperate situation if those resources aren't fully realized. So that's
Okay, so I'll stop it there. And there, as you listened, was talking about the TIF funding. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about that. Okay, one issue, this issue has been repeatedly discussed throughout the school board, which is it involves the tax increments financing, commonly known as TIF. Before we hear any more, let's get into explaining about TIF. TIF districts capture increases in local property tax revenue to support economic development projects. When there is more money collected than needed for those purposes, a portion may be declared surplus and distributed to local taxing bodies, including the Chicago Public Schools. The amount of any surplus varies from year to year, which is why TIF revenues often become part of a larger budget discussion. Okay, so that was just a little bit about the TIF funding. So now we're going to go back and we're going to hear some more discussion from the Chicago Public School Board meeting. Just a minute. So here we go.
I want to speak in favor of the amendment. I want to say that I was one of the board members who lobbied the mayor hard last year for the TIF surplus. So I agree with Board Member Smith. I think I agree with what Commissioner Stamp said when she was here. She said, you got to look at, you know, there's an old saying from the Black Power movement, Dr. Maulana Karenga, the creative Kwanzaa. One of his teachings is Kazi is the blackest of all. And that means the work you do is a lot more important than the words that you say. So I can stand here before you and say, I have lobbied the mayor, not letting the mayor off the hook. But it seems to me in this space, all we talk about is the mayor. All we talk about is TIFs. And I want to do a little history, because values are beliefs that govern your behavior. What you believe is what you do. So for 3 decades, Illinois was 49th in public education due to an over-reliance on property taxes, despite the fact of having an international city within its midst. This was foundational to creating an apartheid school system, with schools in Streeterville and Lincoln Park by design were far more resourced than schools in Austin and Arguello Gardens. Then in 1995, despite this inequity, former Mayor Daley ignored the progress that was made for the first 5 years of local school councils, and he invented an education crisis. And the state of Illinois passed the Amended Act, which gave Daley mayoral control over the Chicago public schools. As the second city in the United States to have mayoral control, Boston was first. There was no political will to hold Springfield accountable at that time. The result, over 161 school closings, 88% of them in Black communities, the purging of Black teachers out of Chicago public schools from 44% in 2000 to roughly 19% today, thousands of children in the wave of school closings lost and unidentified. And at this moment, I want to speak to the spiritual memory of Darian Albert, who died on September 24th, 2009, as he was going to Finger High School because his school, Carver High School in Arguello Gardens, was closed. I want to speak to the spiritual memory of Edward Anderson, who I knew, who went to Dyett High School after Inglewood High School closed. Because as a community, we understood that if you get off that 3rd and King Drive bus and you below 25, you gang affiliated, whether you gang affiliated or not. That community wisdom was ignored. And I went to Edward's funeral. And I want to say, at that time, the political will was not there to hold the state accountable. As our community suffered, the state ignored our pleas for a moratorium on school closings. 3 different years, 2009, 2010, 2012, we went to the state begging them for a moratorium on school closures, and they refused. My point in this is that the state has caused harm, and they owe us. Values, well, the former Senate president of the state Senate killed 4 bills calling for democracy in Chicago education. I want to say again, values are beliefs that govern your behavior. What you believe is what you do. So when I hear an aversion to truly holding accountable all the people that owe us money and we going at one target, the mayor, I want you to know I see through it. We see through it. Values are beliefs that govern your behavior. Who are you protecting? Who don't you want to be held accountable? This isn't looking for a handout from the state. Have we ever seen the Speaker of the House invite us in, supporting supplemental school funding like this, and then the Senate president backing him up? One of my mentors taught me this lesson that sticks with me in different parts of my life. He said, all you need to make change is time, space, and will. The political will was not there in 2017. We sit in these seats not respecting the political will that we forced to create this opportunity. There's an arrogance in that. There's a deep arrogance in that for the people that went to jail for the right for you to sit in these seats. for the people who sat outside in the cold and froze in front of Chicago Public Schools, who took over John Cullerton's bar on Rush Street and demanded the right to have an elected school board, who wrote the referendum to prove that Chicago can have an elected school board. There's an arrogance. And I want you to know I see you. I see you. You're not fooling nobody. So what we're calling for in this moment is not letting the city off the hook. There's no evidence that we've ever done that. There's no evidence, but there is evidence of people for some reason not wanting to hold accountable the body that actually owes us $1 billion. The body that has actually done harm. We need, and so I want to say to you, one of my goals, if I'm blessed enough to be reelected, one of my goals is to end the year with CPS in the black. With CPS not having a $500 million deficit or $400 million deficit. And in order to do that, we must fix the structural break that is in Chicago public schools. We need progressive revenue, real structural solutions, not political theater. Beyond this immediate crisis, this is the time to heal the wound of structural underfunding of Illinois schools. If you look at other large urban districts, Los Angeles funds between 58 and 70% of their schools from the state of California. New York, 40 to 48%. Chicago, 29%. Legitimate progressive revenue legislation has been proposed by Senator Martwick, Representative Therese Ma, and others. I am reminded, and I'll close with this, of one of the quotes from one of my heroes, Omawale El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and you pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And they don't even want to admit that the knife is there. It's important that when we have conversations, we have honest conversations about where the deficit lies. And I'm really concerned about our aversion to having a holistic approach. We passed the legislative agenda finally, and we are hoping that Chicago Public Schools will work in coalition with the people that have created this moment. Values are beliefs that govern your behavior. What you believe is what you do. We have no excuse not to be working together to win this for our school. That's it. Thank you.
Vice President Velez.
Thank you so much, President Harden. This is a difficult time, and I know we have had a lot of conversations, but I'm rising support of this amendment. I also would like to take a page from Board Member Smith, and I tried to do my remix, but a little bit different. I titled it, "They Not Like Us."
Copy right there.
Fear is what you sell when you have nothing to offer. And Chicago, that's what you are about to hear, that the sky is falling, doom, disaster. Earlier, we were being threatened from board members who are backed by billionaires. The same crowd that has been closing schools in the Black and brown community for decades, since the dailies. They mentioned earlier that our plan relies on assumptions. But let me tell you how their number was born. A letter showed up, and 10 minutes later, calls started ringing. But I didn't get a call. Some members did. They were counting votes. They were trying to split us apart. Somehow, they assumed an extra $85 million into existence, took a number from 200 to 285 off a piece of paper.
So he was explaining again about the billionaires and how, how they're working in trying to split up members on the board and so forth. So that was a little bit from the board members themselves. So now I am going to get into the voting itself. Before we do hear about the vote, The first that I'm going to show is the, before they did the final vote, they had to vote on the approved language, the amended language from the vote. So let's play a little of that. And they had to vote on that. So let's play that.
President Harden will now proceed with the separate votes as noted earlier with a separate vote on RS1, adopt the annual school budget for fiscal year 2027. This item does require a vote.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
This matter is now open for discussion. Any comments before proceeding to the vote? Member Blaze.
I move to amend the budget to respond to community concerns and recent developments in the news by increasing anticipated state revenue by $150 million and using those funds to avoid making thousands of recent layoffs permanent and to protect students from challenges caused by additional mid-year hirings, spending, and service cuts. If I receive a second, I will speak to the motion.
Second.
Second.
Again, we are being asked to bake in nearly 2,000 staff cuts that just rolled out and make them permanent. After saying we do not want cuts to the classroom, we do not want cuts to the classroom, we do not want cuts to the classroom. It's getting to be almost like the word equity around here. Like just, we say it all the time and we're not thoughtful about how we move. We are still being asked to sign off on a one-time funding fix of TIF funds that are completely unsecured, and we're giving a pass to the state, who have a constitutional duty to fund our schools and are the only path to long-term structural solutions. These are real cuts to real people and real schools. They have an impact on real students. Over 75% of the staff laid off are people of color, and in my District 5B saw more positions cut than any other. Yesterday, we received a historic invitation from the Speaker of the House to push through additional funding. I need to take every step possible to restore and protect the schools in my district. We each have that duty. And I'm sorry I sound upset right now, but I have been threatened. I have been put off. I have been told they don't have any information by board staff. And I'm just trying to at least have this conversation. It's hurtful. The state owes us money. The funding formula is going down. We've gone from 87% down to 74%, and the cost of everything is going up. And all we want to do is talk about the city. Member Smith, I will go with you to the city. We're going to demand that 285. But if we're not doing the same, if we're not including the state in this conversation, we are fooling ourselves and we are robbing our kids of opportunities.
So
let's work together to make it clear.
I'm going to pause there. As you can hear from the board members, they want to hold this state accountable for more funding. So the city is proposing using the TIF money, and that's not really guaranteed, as you can hear. So let's move this further along to see if we have any other comments from the board president. Oh, there was something that I wanted. There was a question asked about from board member Biggs about if this was final, if they voted yes on the amendment budget.
Lines. I'm just trying to figure out what the process here is. So if this resolution passes, does that mean there needs to be later on a different resolution where it would allocate pretty much an amendment and allocate a line in the budget for this funding?
What I can say publicly is that the school code requires that or prohibits the board from incurring any expenditures without an associated appropriation in the budget.
Okay, I'm just confused. If we were to pass this resolution, can it be implemented?
Are you asking operationally or legally? If it's legally, then I do not feel comfortable expressing my legal opinion publicly.
Okay. And operationally?
That is a question not for me.
Operationally, you don't have the funds allocated to do this project. The funds would need to be taken from somewhere else to be able to designate that. So similar to what Board Member Smith said, the money would have to come from somewhere. That would be probably the existing budget if it were to play out that way. But again, legally, I think that's an avenue that we want to have a definitive answer on.
Okay, and I will also like to know where potentially the funding, or if there's an idea. I know that Board Member Smith mentioned potentially the arts, but I'll.
Okay, I apologize for that. I don't think that that's where I was going. They were talking about funding for a specific project. But there was a question raised. I think I jumped ahead. Just let me go here to the votes instead.
We will be taking a vote on the amended language as motioned by Board Member Blaze and seconded by Board Member Lozano. I do want to clarify, though, for the amended language, Board Member Blaze, is it increasing anticipated state revenue by 150 million, as you noted, or is it based on the materials that was shared earlier this morning?
It's based on the materials.
The amended language is on page 10 of the budget book. At the paragraph starting at the end of this process, after that sentence, it's adding the sentence, after reviewing the impact on students and school communities of over 1,600 position closures and layoffs, and given this district's commitment to continued investments in special education, this budget will use additional resources to add back 100 million in funding to rescind layoffs and maintain staffing across schools. It is also adding number 2 in that section, increase the state funding assumption by $150 million, including $50 million additional funding in mandated categorical grants and $100 million in additional evidence-based funding. The state of Illinois reports FY 2026 revenue exceeded projections by $1.003 billion, and there are active legislative proposals for additional revenue streams and additional public education allotments. Striking institute 5 furlough days for all CPS employees to be taken on a non-instructional days between January and June 2027, resulting in 80 million in savings, striking that out. Also,
Sorry, Susan, the parentheses, we took that out too. The state of Illinois reports FY 2026, the portion that's in parentheses.
That's being stricken?
Yes, please.
Okay.
It's not necessary.
Okay, so they are talking about the language
I have a
in
question.
the amended
I have a
language.
question. I just want to know, if voting yes on this budget, maybe this is for the superintendent, would this be considered a balanced budget if we vote
This is
yes
the
on this
question I
budget?
was talking about.
The amendment.
I have not seen the amendment in its entirety, and based on the CFO and the budget director, they're telling me no.
It would not be considered a balanced budget.
That's according to what I've been told.
Okay, thank you.
So they're saying that if they vote yes on this amendment, it would not be considered a balanced budget. So that's important to note as well.
I do want to note that the first part of the amended language reads proposed amendment language for the budget resolution 26073 RS1, amending section 2 of the resolution adopting the annual school budget for fiscal year 2027. Section 2, budget approval, the annual school budget for fiscal year 2027, incorporating Exhibit A of this resolution and the website at cps.edu/budget as amended by Exhibit B is adopted. Continuing on where I left off, the section starting with implement, strike out a combination, strike out and a district-wide mid-year spending and hiring freeze, strike out 112.6 million and adding 62.6 million. In the table noted as balancing the FY 2027 budget, adding under FY 2027 beginning deficit, rescinding of layoffs and position closures, 100 million, updated remaining deficit, 397.6 million, increase under updated remaining deficit. I'm sorry. In that section, strike out district-wide mid-year spending and hiring freezes with 62.6 million, adding in increasing state funding assumption 150 million. Striking out the mid-year spending freeze is a measure of last resort. By delaying the implementation of this measure until the second half of the school year, we create a critical window between now and December 31st, 2026. Striking out in the next sentence, timeline gives. Adding in at the very end of this paragraph, protect our school communities and prevent permanent harm. This is the amended language for RS1, adopt the annual school budget for fiscal year 2027. The vote.
Can we get our CFO or Chief Budget Officer on the record clearly stating whether or not this presents a balanced budget proposal?
Here again,
We're done with questions already. We're ready to vote.
but they're in a vote already.
We're in the vote. Please proceed.
We will now proceed with the electronic voting for the amended language for RS1. Board members, please cast your vote.
So here they are casting their vote for the amended language for, what do they call it?
Board member Pope, what is your vote?
RS1.
Yes.
So as you can count here, we have 1, 2.
I'm sorry, Superintendent, you hear me?
6.
Yes, we heard.
8.
Your vote has been
Thank
recorded.
you.
11.
Thank you.
11 yeses, but she's gonna say that, so I'll just wait.
Voting is closed. The ayes have it for the amended language to be added to RS1 with 11 ayes, 7 nays, and 1 abstention. We will now need to take a vote on RS1, adopt the annual school budget for fiscal year 2027 with that amended language.
This is the actual vote with the amended language, as she stated.
We'll need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Board Member Brown that seconded?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll now proceed with the electronic voting for RS1 with the amended language added. Board members, please cast your vote.
So they are taking the final vote
Board Member Pope, can you let us know what your vote is?
with the
Yes,
amended
please.
language.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
All votes have been cast. The voting is closed. The ayes have it with 11 ayes, 7 nays, 1 abstention for RS1. Adopt the annual school budget for fiscal year 2027 with amended language.
Okay, and there we have it. That was the final vote there. And I'm going to pull up here so you can see it here. So as we have it, that as you can see, each board member voted first on the amended language. And but before that, there was discussion about the amended language and why it was needed. And then there was a vote to, as you saw, the person read the amended language there. And then they took a vote on that. And then we had the final vote as members debated the amendment that assumed an additional $150 million in future state funding. That amendment became the key issue before the final vote, as you heard. Okay. And there we have it. You've watched the budget being passed by 11-7 vote. Transparency matters always. Whether you agreed with the outcome or not, it's important for the public to know how each board member voted. Understanding those votes helps residents stay informed and hold public officials accountable. So here we have it here displayed here again, one more time. And so we're going to end with our questions, okay? We're still watching for Springfield approval for the additional funding. Will layoffs be reserved? Will the lawsuit affect school funding? Oh, we didn't talk about that, but IFT is suing, I think it's the Cook County for for property taxes that's owed to CPS. I'm not sure, but there is a lawsuit going on with IFT. So be sure to check that out, and I may speak on that in the next episode. But will the next board inherit a budget shortfall? What precedent does this vote set? there's a lot of questions that still remain unanswered and need to be answered here. So with that being said, today's meeting was about much more than passing a budget. It highlighted how decisions are made, how financial assumptions shape policy, and how public officials exercise their authority on behalf of Chicago's students. Here at Chicago Education Watch, our mission is simple. We help explain the process, provide context, and encourage meaningful public engagement. If you found this episode informative, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who wants to better understand how decisions are made inside Chicago public schools and in education as a whole. I'm Dr. Marlo Barnett, and thank you for watching Chicago Education Watch. And remember, understand, discuss, and participate.
Chicago
Thank you.